Welcome to the February 2nd, 2017 regular Benicia Unified School District Board meeting. We need to report out on, we got new mics and stuff in here, so if I get way up here and echo, we need to report out on student matter 17-009, and I make a motion and recommend to
To uphold the decision of the committee.
Yes, including primary and secondary
Findings.
findings, yes. And
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Ferrucci
Yes.
and Trustee Morgan.
yes.
Do we have to go through everybody?
Yes.
Even though, all right. Trustee Holguin
Yes.
and Trustee Wing.
Yes. Okay, at this time, would everybody please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Dr. Beetson, we have a highlight tonight. Do you want to?
So, thank you very much. We have a nice highlight for us tonight. Actually, what you might tell them, that would be nice for you to do.
I just see where it says Dr. Beetson on here, so.
Betty told me
Good evening. I'm really pleased to welcome Mrs. Christina Moore and Robert Semple students here to talk with you about, our STEAM wheel that happens at the elementary schools, grades 3 through 5. The STEAM wheel started a few years ago as a pilot at one elementary school, and now all of our schools in the district, all of our elementary schools have this STEAM wheel for one semester, and they're going to tell you all about it.
Good evening, trustees and district dignitaries. Thank you for inviting Robert Semple to present to you our exciting STEAM exploratory wheel. We are so lucky to be able to offer each one of our elementary schools a 15-week program, like Dr. Beetson said, 3rd through 5th grade. This program allows students to participate in these amazing rotations and experience all the disciplines in the STEAM field. We know STEAM education helps all young people to think more deeply and promotes an interest in students becoming the innovators, educators, researchers, and leaders who can solve the most pressing challenges facing our world today. So if you would change that really quick. Thank you. STEAM education develops valuable life skills such as logical reasoning and collaboration. It builds character traits such as confidence and imagination. It expands their knowledge and interest in science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And lastly, it inspires. Just come visit us on a Friday. Next slide, please. Thank you. Our STEAM exploratory wheels includes workshops such as dance, voina, tinkering, which I might say is in room 16, with power drills and saws, just so you know. Chess, drama, drawing, music exploration, robotics, and computer coding. With that being said, I have brought 3 amazing Robert Semple students to share with you their experience. Feel free to ask them questions. So I have, and put the next slide up. So I have first here, this is Ellen. Ellen is a 3rd grader in Mrs. Ramos's class. I'm gonna have Ellen step up right here so they can see you.
Hi, my name is Ellen Gonchov, and I'm a 3rd grade student in Miss Ramos's class. I really like having the STEAM wheel on Friday. The STEAM wheel is fun. We get to play real instruments from around the world and learn about music. Having STEAM makes learning interesting and exciting.
And next we have a 4th grader, Helen, who's going to talk to you about her experience. She's in Mr. Birkin's class. Come on up here. And kind of hold it a little bit away from you.
Hi, my name is Helen Randolph, and I'm a 4th grade student in Mr. Barkin's class. I like the steam wheel because we get to dance and learn different moves that you might never have learned before. Steam makes school more fun and exciting. I like that we get different teachers and different experiences with each workshop. We are lucky that we have STEAM, and I want to thank all the teachers who do the STEAM for us.
And last, we have Emmanuel. He's a 5th grader in Mr. Shelton's class. Do you want me to hold it for you? He's got a little something to show you, too. Okay, I'll do that. Sounds like a plan. There you go. Oh my God, right?
Hi, my name is Emmanuel Vincent. I'm a 5th grade student in Mr. Shelton's class. I think STEAM Wheel is amazing because not only do you get to learn about robotics, but you also get to use a cool object called Legos. You could build anything you could imagine as long as you have the right Legos. I love school every day, and I try to get to school on time so I can learn. Every Friday, school is even more fun. Why? Because of STEAM Wheel. After STEAM Wheel, they tell us what our next activity will be. And it makes me excited about what we get to do next. And the STEAM Wheel inspired me to make this.
What is that? What are they looking at?
A space shuttle.
Very nice.
Thank you for this opportunity. Do you have any questions? Anything you'd like more to know? It's okay if you don't.
I'm sorry, I was trying to.
I want to know who's working with this with the sock. Is that also the 5th graders? Is that where?
That is 3rd grade, actually, and
Third grade.
you can see in these 2 pictures right here. So you've got your power drills, your hot glue guns. They're building shelters and creating an architectural design before doing that, and they just now got to take those home. So they're pretty cool.
How great.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we still on track for having STEAM 2 semesters next year?
Yes, so I wanted to add just a bit more. Like I said, we piloted just at one elementary school 3 years ago, and for the last 2 years, all 4 elementary schools have gotten 1 semester of STEAM for 15 weeks. And thanks to BEF's funding, next year, our 3rd through 5th graders will have an entire year of STEAM. So we'll have both 1st and 2nd semester. So the other thing I wanted to just note and thank publicly are the community partners that have really stepped up to partner with us in offering these opportunities. And so you saw on the list, we have Berkeley Chess Club, Voena, lots and lots of great response from our community. So it's also a great opportunity to partner with folks in our community, get them into schools and see what's happening. We do a lot with Arts Benicia, so it's been a great opportunity. So thank you, and thanks BEF for funding this for a 2nd semester.
Can I say we invite you at 8:30 tomorrow to Robert Semple to come see it? It's for an hour.
And all the, I know I have it with Turner tomorrow, Jake's class. They have it STEAM night tomorrow. Is it all at the same time, all the sites?
There are 2 one-hour sessions, and so they'll start at Semple from 8:30 to 9:30, and then start at Turner probably at 10 to 11. But all 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade go at the same time, so STEAM happens at the exact same time for all the classes.
I meant tomorrow night.
Oh, tomorrow night is a separate event, and
At Semple and Turner, or?
just Turner.
Okay.
Yep.
So what's tomorrow night then for the?
Tomorrow night, Steve Slater, the principal's been doing STEAM Week, so just to focus on STEAM activities. And then tomorrow evening is a family event to bring your kids, and they've got, I think he said 20 stations or something, where they will have all types of events there.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. At this time, we will move to student reports.
Hi, I'm Jessica. I'm Liberty's representative. On January 28th, students participated in the Poetry Out Loud competition at the library, and 2 students have advanced to the county competition, Victor Hudson and Hunter Lee. The competition will be held on the 11th, and more information about the competition is on the Poetry Out Loud website. The 6th, the Liberty basketball team is going against Dublin. Hopefully we'll win. We also start our bully project the 6th. And that'll last a week. Then we have on the 15th, the students will be going to Toro and learning about the medical field there and seeing if they'd like to pursue an interest in that. And that's it.
Thank you. Superintendent report?
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just a few quick items. A reminder that the elementary kindergarten and TK enrollment started on February 1st. Another item I'd like to point out that this week we had a situation in town where there was a hazmat situation at one of the homes, and fire department contacted us, and we responded to that. Now, the reason I'm bringing it up is because I wanted to pay an appreciation to Ms. Moore and the team over at Robert Semple. They responded really well to that and organized themselves well and got the kids all lined up and home safely and went off without incident, and that we were able to use our many communication devices to get the message out there. So I was proud of our response to that. Ms. Egan, our bond manager, will be talking to us tonight in great detail about the work that we're doing with all of our bond projects to date and some different work that we're doing at the middle school. We have Bond Oversight Committee representative here this evening. But during the week, the management team members and the construction team, we met over at the high school and went through a very detailed document, line by line, regarding, I think, just about everything that Ms. Egan could point out on the upper stadium project. When they were color-coded, that it's green, we're good, it's white, we need to think about it, it's red, that's an issue, and it was great. We just went over it with great detail, and I have really good confidence that we're moving along at the right pace with that big and important project. Another item, I had an opportunity to visit the high school this week. I went over and visited the leadership class and had great conversation with them and engaged them in dialogue about strengths and weaknesses of the school and how we can better prepare them and their thoughts around that. And then I went over and visited iQuest, and they came and they did a presentation with that. And that was terrific because I got to hear from each of the students again about their internship and how it's going. And that has been such a great addition to our program offerings for the kids. So I wish we could offer 2 sections of that next year. So that's been a real hit. So excited to do that. And the last item, I think we've been talking a lot about PBIS, and one of the steps that we go through when we implement it to make sure that we're doing it with fidelity and it's sticking and it's making a difference is we go through this school-wide evaluation process. So they went through that at the middle school, and it's a very detailed process, and they went through and they got great results. They got a 95% score on this, showing their degree of fidelity in implementing that program. So happy about that. It makes a difference in the lives of kids around safety and positive interactions with staff. So that's it for me.
Good, thank you. Board reports?
With BEF this last month, we had 2 really great meetings. We were joined by the principals of Benicia High School and Benicia Middle School, as well as Dr. Beatson and Dr. Young, and spent an hour discussing where we are with our college programming on both campuses. And as we talked about at our last meeting, we're excited to have a speaker coming for parent events at both the middle school and high school. Dr. Darlene Bell Carson will be at the middle school on February 23rd and at the high school on February 25th. So those will be great events to learn about planning for and attending college. And in addition, we worked with BHS and the school district to fund another round of Chromebook computers for 2 grants that were requested at the high school for Miss Honeycutt and all the G-Wing English teachers, and then Miss Lane, and also 1 grant for computers at Turner for Miss Dam's class. We also did 3 other mini grants for Miss Shishido Bailey to get height adjustable sitting standing desks, Mr. Kaiser to get Photon Redboard microcontrollers for his class. We're all gonna go see those because we wanna know what they are. And then from Miss Nelson and Miss Dalsky at the middle school to get training, to be able to train teachers for restorative practices in working with students. And so we're excited about all of those projects moving forward and hearing back about how they're doing. Thank you.
I just want to congratulate Betty and all the others who were honored. The email Dr. Gardner sent around. I don't know if you're going to read them out or do that later, but.
Yeah, I think we would do it at another board meeting where we read everybody.
Okay, well, then I just want to appreciate, thank you for all your hard work.
Why don't you say what that was real quickly, Dr. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was our classified employees of the year. It's always funny, it's 2017, 18, because we always have to be a year ahead of time before it goes now to the county, then to the state, then to the national, so you have to do it a year ahead of time. So those folks are actually going to be honored next year. They'll be our employees of the year next year, is where it is. It's always a little funny.
Not to get confused. Thank you.
We're ahead of the game on that one.
I just have a real quick announcement from CSBA, and so it's to all of my fellow board members here. If anybody is interested in attending the CSBA Legislative Action Day, it's March 21st in Sacramento at the Capitol. It's a great day. It's a time that you get to sit and talk with legislatures and tell your stories about your districts and talk about your concerns or what your needs are and where you need to have your legislators kind of focus their energies. If you've never been there before, it's really great, and I encourage you to come. My car will be leaving early in the morning, so if anybody wants to jump on in, let me know. We can all carpool. Celeste is already going to join us. She emailed me yesterday that she wants to come as well. So anyways, I invite you to get online, register, so they know you're coming, and then we could take and go.
March 27th?
March 21st. I'm not positive, but I think it's a Tuesday. It seems like it was a weekday. Is it a Monday?
Tuesday?
I don't have my calendar.
It's a Tuesday.
I got my pad. I don't have a. So it's a Tuesday. They're throwing us a curve.
I just want to make a couple announcements. Our bands, our middle school and high school bands is having their Jazz and Crab on February 11th. And they still got tickets available, I believe. You can email, I just had it here, I lost it, bhsjazzincrab@gmail.com and ask about tickets and more information. Or look at the high school or the middle school websites. The link is on there. Always an outstanding time. You could close your eyes or have your back towards the bands and you won't know which band's playing. I mean, they're both that good. Or I guess the middle school's that good and the high school's not. I don't know. Anyways,
That didn't go as planned.
it didn't go as planned, but it's an excellent time, and we can edit that out. Please edit that out. You don't know if it's Memorex or live. Let's put it that way.
Keep in mind, the high school jazz just won an amazing award. They made it to the national.
Yes, our high school jazz band is made it national. So, and then what's the date for the BEF run? April 24th, and they can find BEF run on the webpage. And last week, 2 weeks ago, last week at BEF. April 23rd. 23rd, okay. Last week I had the Benicia Youth Action Coalition meeting, and we're doing a lot of talking, a lot of research and community, talking to the community about tobacco use, especially with our students, and so we're kind of doing some education and outreach on that, and also looking at a tobacco retail license and the benefits of having that and everything. And then we're still doing a lot of discussion with the county, with our ATOD counties side of the world, about the marijuana thing that got passed, and how that's going to affect us and how it affects the city and affect our youth and all that. So those are a couple things that we are working on for that. And then there's also opium is starting to hit California as a increase in the drug world. So the county is looking at starting a task force and how to develop that and keep that away from our kids and keep our kids safe as well as keep our community safe. That's some of the things we discussed. We have a parent project that we pay for. I think there's a small charge to parents, I'm not sure. That starts on March 7th. And if you're interested in that, you can email me and I could give you the right direction, or talk to the Family Resource Center, yes. I didn't write that down, I'm looking at my agenda for the meeting, so. That's about all I have. I'd like to thank Liberty for showing up and giving us all the good report there. Thank you. At this time, we will move to comments from members of the public. Members of the public may address the board on any item within the board's jurisdiction. Cards which may be completed requesting to address the board are available at the back table and may be submitted to the board secretary at the meeting. The governing board allows speakers to speak on agendized and non-agendized matters under public comment, and comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker. And by law, no action may be taken on any item raised during the public comment periods, and matters may be referred to staff for placement on a future agenda of the governing board. Do we have any comments from members of the public? And seeing nobody run to the podium, we will move down to our consent calendar. Consent calendar, all matters listed under the consent calendar are considered by the board to be routine and will be approved by the board in one motion. There will be no discussion on these items unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items to be polled and discussed.
President Wing, there is a resolution in that, so we need to take a roll call vote.
Yeah, yes. Need a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Ferrucci?
Yes.
Trustee Holguin?
Yes.
Trustee Morgan? Trustee Wing?
Yes. Okay, gonna move down to, oops. Really nice when you click something on your agenda and it goes to all kinds of numbers. Discussion items. And here we go. Ms. Roxanne, you want to come up and introduce Scott? And we're going to talk Measure S Citizens Bond Oversight Committee Annual Report.
Right. Good evening. We're joined tonight by Scott Burford. He is the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee Chairperson, and he'll be providing the annual report from the Bond Oversight Committee. As per the bylaws, the committee shall present to the board in public session an annual written report, which includes a statement indicating whether the district is in compliance with the requirements of Article 13A, Section 1B, 3 for the California Constitution, and a summary of the committee's proceedings and the activities for the preceding year. So I'm going to invite Scott up and let him share that with you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the introduction, Roxanne, and good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, I'm the chairman of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee for Measure S, and I am here to deliver our annual report for the 2015-2016 fiscal year. But before I do, I'd like to recognize and thank the committee members who've joined me in overseeing that the proceeds from this bond measure are spent in accordance with the law. So joining me for a second term are Steve McClure, Ron Arentz, and Pat Lopez. We're also joined by new committee members this year, Todd Blaitler, David Sells, and Dr. Linda Cole. I'd also like to thank the district's Chief Business Officer, Tim Rahill, and Bond Director, Roxanne Egan. I have to say, both Tim and Roxanne do an excellent job of preparing for our meetings, answering our many questions, and they hang in there like champs when, well, we get a little cranky when we suddenly realize how little you get these days for $49 million. I appreciate their efforts. I'd also like to thank District Superintendent Dr. Charles Young, who always takes time out of his day to join our meetings and share his updates and his enthusiasm over the bonds projects. I think we all know, those of you involved with Measure S, that implementing a bond measure is a difficult task, but our community can be proud that this team has dedicated itself to doing the best job possible to benefit as many of our students as possible. So thank you for that. And now I know what you're probably all thinking. Well, are we in compliance or not? It's really the question of the moment. So therefore, on behalf of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, I am pleased to report that for the 2015-2016 fiscal year, ending in June 30th, 2016, the Benicia Unified School District has spent Measure S bond proceeds per the bond project list contained in the ballot measure and is therefore in compliance with the requirements of California Constitution Article 13A, Section 1B, subsection 3. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well done. Let's keep it up. And while I'm here, I'd like to summarize some of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee proceedings for the 2015-2016 fiscal year. We meet quarterly, and our meetings for the year were on October 6, 2015, January 12, 2016, April 12, 2016, and our fourth quarter meeting was held on July 12, 2016. Now, at these meetings, we meet to review the bond project updates, and we receive and file the bond expenditure lists. As I mentioned earlier, we ask a lot of questions. For the 2015-2016 fiscal year, we received and filed bond expenditure lists totaling $4,531,989.74. Now, approximately $2 million of those funds were spent on infrastructure upgrades. That would be clocks, bells, PA systems, surveillance systems, and phone systems at all of the schools. Another $600,000 or so was spent on new roofs, $161,000 on playgrounds, $385,000 on fire alarms, $664,000 was spent towards the BHS Stadium project, which is ongoing, as you know, and $181,000 on project management, $503,000 on painting. There were approximately $12 million in the Measure S Series A funds remaining on June 30th, 2016, to be spent on current and future Measure S bond projects and to be reviewed by our committee at the meetings during the 2016-2017 fiscal year. On August 17th, 2016, several CBOC members, including myself, attended the groundbreaking ceremony for the BHS Stadium Track and Field project. And also during the summer of 2016, on July 12th, our committee visited the bond program office and enjoyed a tour of the district's technology department. Well, in closing, I just want to thank everybody up here for your service and for your support of Measure S and for, of course, supporting the children of our community. I think we can all agree that we need to hope for some dry weather so we can get that stadium project done in time for graduation. That's all I have for tonight, unless anybody has any questions.
I just thank you for your service, first of all. I know it's time out of a busy day. Were there any recommendations or concerns the committee had at the, around our administration of the Measure S proceeds that, didn't make a finding, but that you'd want to share with us? Or?
Well, nothing in specific, although I will say that during our meetings, I will say that all of us are pretty plugged into the amount of money being spent. We're concerned about how much money is being spent on any one thing. I think the stadium project has come up, not in a critical way. We know the work needs to be done. We're just frustrated that construction workers can't work in the mud, right? And that when they do, it still costs a lot, right? So I'd say it's probably a fair statement to say we're concerned about the overall cost of the stadium project, but it's completely in compliance with Measure S. It's on the list, it's one of the items, the money's being spent, so really, compliance is a pretty easy issue. We will continue to question things as we see them. Right now, we do see progress, and I do want to once again reiterate that both Tim and Roxanne have done an excellent job of keeping us up to date as things change, as the budget changes. And our last meeting, which was just a couple of days ago, we got a really nice overview. So that'd be the main thing I thought I'd answer with. Yeah.
Thank you. And I want to just actually thank you and the committee for meeting once a quarter versus what's required of once a year. So you guys are staying on top of everything.
That'd be a
for us.
long meeting if we only met once a year.
So I do appreciate that, and
Yeah.
at least you guys are staying plugged in, and so.
Yeah,
thank you.
I think the quarterly meetings really do help us stay focused on what's going on, and it helps keep everybody on track. I mean, a lot can happen in a year, right? You need to
Exactly.
kind of
Exactly.
get together every so often for an update, and it happens that way, so that's good.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and we're gonna move on to the Measure S quarterly bond update.
Very good. So we'd like to welcome Ms. Egan back to the podium. So this agenda item gives us an opportunity to provide the board with a lot of detail regarding where we are with bond projects to date. It builds on some of the things that Mr. Burford shared. Then she can go into detail in a number of other areas. So welcome back to the podium, Ms. Egan.
Thank you, Charles. So I'm here to provide the quarterly update on the Measure S bond program. The purpose of this update is to provide information on the school facility projects funded by the Measure S bonds and review items from the quarterly Citizens Bond Oversight Committee on the Measure S general obligation bonds from the meeting we just had 2 days ago. So Scott gave you an overview of compliance, and so I'm going to give you an update on the project list that we reviewed with them, and then we're going to go on and talk about specifics with Lee of the middle school. So kind of segmented here in the approach, but really comprehensive in the umbrella. So we met with the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee this last Tuesday, January 31st. All members were present. We discussed the bond projects in progress. Expenditures through December 31st, 2016 were reviewed and approved by the committee. We are going to have our new IT director, Sebastiano Padoan, join us at the next meeting with the CBOC committee. They wanted him to share some information about cybersecurity. So on this slide up here, this is the overview of bond projects that we shared with them and updates on it. Since the last review of this list, item number 11, which is the Clocks, Bells, and PA district-wide project, has been moved from the in-construction category to the completed projects category. The Benicia High School Stadium is the only project currently in construction. To date, change orders consist of 4.8% of the approved contract and are due mostly to unforeseen site conditions pertaining to the soils, the water, and other items such as DSA, ADA parking, removal of transite hazardous materials piping, and the sewer line reconfiguration. The stadium timeline for completion has experienced delays due to weather, the soils conditions, and additional DSA building requirements. It appears likely that the field, bleachers, and PA systems will be adequately complete to host graduation. However, we can't be certain given the additional prolonged rain forecast. It is likely the buildings will not be 100% complete at the time of graduation, and we're targeting for all punch list items in full completion in early summer. Sean, who has joined us here tonight, is working to have a backup plan should construction not be adequately complete to host the graduation. It's going to kind of be a work in progress. We'll know more probably March, April. Everyone is working hard to hold schedules as able, and continued updates will be provided. The bleacher piers and lime treatment of the soils installation were completed last week. We're excited for the next task as they will start having much more visible presence of progress. And they include shotcrete installation under the bleachers, delivery and erection of the bleachers, installation of new Musco Stadium lighting, and the entry retaining wall construction. We will also be meeting with the new IT director to cover the bond project to overview and bring him up to speed on it. It was reviewed with the prior IT director, and Gary also was helpful, but we just want to make sure there's no gaps. The Benicia High School fire alarm upgrades. So one of our projects that's scheduled for summer 2017 are fire alarm upgrades at the high school. So those construction documents were submitted to DSA in early December. We are hopeful to have approved plans in March, and we're going to work to go to bid shortly thereafter. The engineer's construction cost estimate is $2.87 million. We know there's no guarantee as to cost, especially in this hot construction market. Once we receive bids, we'll have more solid pricing. The construction is expected to take more than the summer months, so we will include scheduling to allow the project to either start prior to the end of school or extend into the return of school. This will likely entail evening and or weekend work. The existing fire alarm system will remain active until the new system is approved and fully functional. Fire watch will not be required since both systems will be up and working throughout the construction. And summer school will not be held at Benicia High School to avoid any conflicts with the construction. The Prop 39 solar and energy efficiency upgrades. So this was, in the beginning, you know, we weren't sure if it was going to be paid with bond monies or the Prop 39. And as this has developed farther, it seems like it's probably not going to be paid for with bond monies, but it's going to be paid for with our CEC 0% loan. And then the energy improvements will be paid with our Prop 39 monies. But so we hired Sage to work on that, and that's been in progress. We just received the draft format for the feasibility study, and staff is going to review that with Sage Consultants, and we'll bring back information to share with the board in March. That's what I got. So those updates were shared with the board, with this Citizens Bond Oversight Committee at our last meeting, and that's kind of a general overview. If there's any questions, or if you want Tim to go through the expenditures list or anything, let us know.
I only got one question, as I'm hearing it 1,000 times, is if it stopped raining, and it's raining right now, and we had 7 days of dry weather, what is the next steps that's gonna happen with the stadium? I know that the stands are gonna start being delivered and put in. What are we looking at if perfect world, a rough ballpark of
Sequencing.
Yes.
So the next things that are lined up right now is shotcrete, because underneath the bleachers, we have shotcrete that goes on the slope. The bleachers are gonna be getting delivered, and they'll start assembling those and erecting them, so it'll be quite visible to the community, which will be good. I think it's great. They are pouring the retaining walls at the entry, which is also, it's a nice graphic to get that out there and moving. And so they're working on grading, the finished grading for the site and the curbs out there and those types of sequencing. So that's probably a look ahead for the next 3 weeks.
And 2.5 weeks of rain.
I know.
Our friend saw his shadow, so they said, yeah, he saw his shadow. It was on the news today. They even named him. I thought, oh my gosh.
So at what point do we start announcing if there's going to be alternative plans for graduation? Because that's the question I get.
That everybody has.
9,000 times.
I know. So I think that in April, we probably start to have a better idea of where that is. March, there's still 2.5, months, the flux that could come or go. So in order to have graduation, okay, so if we have the field down, one of the last things that goes in is the track. But before the track goes in, they do like a subsurface. It's concrete. So even if the track material isn't there, you could still have the performance on the field. The bleachers will be in. PA will be one of the systems that goes in, like it's scheduled for April right now. So I want to build expectations that are realistic, that no, everything's not going to be 100% complete. But these items that we need to have complete in order to have graduation there, they're some of the earlier items that go in. So I am optimistic that there's a good chance it might happen.
Okay, that's the term we needed. We're cautiously optimistic. Yeah.
Oh, the possibility of maybe that it
The
could be.
possibility that graduation will occur is porta potties, but not.
Well, and that is one of the points. If the buildings aren't fully set up, we may have things like, we might have temporary fencing still, we might have some temporary restroom buildings, and you can find some nice temporary restroom buildings that don't look all that bad. I know Alfredo's working on buying some new stage setup and things that'll sit on the grass. So I am optimistic still at this point, but I want to work to build expectations for alternate routes if it doesn't happen.
Or you can use an attorney's thing, it depends.
Sorry. You talked about the district-wide solar updates. Well, it'll be in March when we get to see what that plan is going to look like? Or will
Yeah.
it be before that opportunity? Because I don't have a visual for that.
Sure. So we have the Prop 39 consists of two components. One component is energy upgrades, and the other component is the solar. The energy upgrades are taking longer to complete their study, and so what we've asked them to do is we want to get rolling on some of the solar stuff, and since we know that that funding is going to come from CEC with the first steps, we're like, give us that draft, we want to see the solar piece of it, and then we can review that and get started going down the road of getting ready for construction documents. And in the meantime, they'll still be finalizing the energy upgrade component, which doesn't hurt us at all. So I think that Tim and I are gonna have some conversations with them, and Charles certainly will be included in the kept abreast of all of it. But, so we can certainly share graphics of like, here's what they're looking at for number of solar panels in these places, and we can bring it to the next board meeting, the photos and stuff, and also probably share out with board updates or whatever venue that we want to put them in. So it'll start showing you, we had them do district-wide for the entire district. If we found money, used a PPA, did alternate sources, what would it look like to try to, what are the sites that would be more feasible to get good payoff for this? Because not every site in the district does. So we came down to like 4 sites in what we looked at preliminary with them. The high school does, and it gets to, if you have a congruent property line, so they consider, even though it crosses the freeway, they consider the middle school and Mary Farmer. Thank you. That one over there.
The elementary school.
Yes, congruent. And so the high school is a much more, they have much more area in the back upper parking lot that can receive solar panels. And it becomes more cost efficient if you do larger installations instead of a small one here, a small one there. So we're looking at the high school to accept a large number, and there's enough space there that they can get more credit than the high school uses, so it will help to set up the middle school as well as Mary Farmer. So that's exciting. At the high school, in the original configuration, all the panels are in the back lot with the exception of the lot to the west, which is a teacher's parking spot. They would do a row in there, which would have some tree pruning, but not, some of those trees aren't that healthy, quite frankly. And then, so we think that that would probably use all of our CEC loan monies. There is, if we looked at, so again, because it's most cost economical, we had them do it all the way across the district, but the other elementary schools that they looked at and are identifying spaces for, we think that would be somewhere in the future. The schools, the other schools we looked at were Matthew Turner, had some space, Robert Semple, and I think Joe Henderson, Tim, is that right? Can you, yeah, so those were the other 3 that we considered that could be possibilities for future, but we will certainly bring you graphics and share those with you.
That would be great.
And when we build them, is the energy actually used on the site, or are we just selling it back to the utilities?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it goes into the grid, and then whether or not you get, we'll clarify that.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
And well, I was wondering if it's just sold into the grid, then does it have to be on the school's property? Because there's other spots around the schools, like the community parking lot, which would be a great location for the shade.
They already have.
But they don't have all solar.
I,
Yeah, they do.
Community park?
Yeah, those are all solar.
Not where the parents park across the street from the school. There's no solar there.
Further around, they do have solar out there.
There's lots, anyway.
So, yeah, but, yeah.
I think, so I'm not sure, and I can check that, good point though, with our consultant. But based on the fact that they say you can't share across sites, like for the high school, we can only share it with the property that's congruent. We can't share it with the elementary school. So based on that same theory, I don't think we can, but I don't know. It's worth checking into, though.
Yeah.
Good question.
There's a lease agreement from the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other, real quick, the piece that I like about this whole effort is it's like both parts of it. So the first part is, efficiency and taking a look at the HVAC system at the high school, so maximizing on the efficiency piece, and then moving into energy generation, which is the solar piece. So cautiously optimistic, we, bring a plan.
Maybe we could put wind turbines at the stadium.
We bring a plan forward and, with visuals and things in a couple months, so the trustees can look, exactly what this plan looks like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. You're welcome. Should I, then, if you guys are ready,
Yes, why don't you
Say
introduce,
a couple.
or,
Yeah, so I'd like to welcome Ms. Egan Stay and Mr. Lee Pollard to the podium. Lee Pollard from HY Architects has been our partner through the strategic, the facilities master plan that we went through last year, and he's held our hand through this exciting effort. And he's here tonight to share with you our best thinking on the project at the middle school. So the project at the middle school is in that priority area number 1 in our facilities master plan. And the last time we talked about it in detail, we were taking a look at a different configuration there, but with some further thinking and analysis, we have some different thoughts on it. So Mr. Pollard is here tonight to fill you in with all of the details around that and give you an opportunity to ask us any questions.
Can I just, I'm sorry to, I don't know the folks in the back, but I just got message that we're not broadcasting.
that's
No,
correct.
we're not. No.
Okay.
It's, we're gonna stream it, and it, through that internet.
Oh, so we're no longer broadcasting on
No,
TV?
we're on
Correct,
television.
that's part of our upgrade.
Oh, I didn't understand that. Okay.
Yes.
Because it wasn't working anyway.
So it's not on the community channel, the cable channel anymore?
There'll be a link on the district website
Where they can watch it tomorrow or next day on that.
Okay.
Welcome, Mr. Pollard.
Thank you very much, Dr. Young. So really quickly, I'm going to go back to the question that was asked about the energy coming from the solar panels. Technically, that goes into an inverter and is used first by the school. And then if you generate excess electricity, then it feeds back into the grid. So for example, on a nice warm sunny Saturday, it would feed directly into the grid. And what PG&E does is it basically credits you for the stuff you feed into the grid for your overall bill. And so that's where that comes. And it's part of the law and the process that the contiguous sites is all that they will allow you to bill against or sell back against. So that's where that comes from. So I'm going to jump into the middle school. As we were developing the plans for replacing the portables down there on the lower campus and trying to work that through, we ended up having a whole lot of discussions, and there was a discussion at the board here in December about that. And it kind of, after all those discussions, and it's not working. So could you click the button there?
She can do it for now. I'll go get it.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. I'll just nudge you here. We ended up having what I like to think of as a reset. We stopped and we said, wait a second. Does this make sense? Does it really make sense to replace all of the, put in 8 new portables and do all this work down at the lower campus, and what really makes sense for this campus? And after several meetings with the district staff and with Damien, the principal, out there at the high school, we kind of took that and went back and looked at what we had again. So at the middle school, and at the upper left-hand corner, there's kind of the map that they use as a campus map. We went through and looked at how many classes they had. And lower chart there, and you probably can see it better on your computers, is kind of a how many classroom teachers you have and how many classes you have. Ooh, I've got a controller now. At the school, and the count ended up bringing us to, well, if you just took the classes that you had right now, you didn't really need those portables down there on the lower 40, the lower campus at all for just regular classes. Now that count that way did not include, basically it would have taken away Tech Town, and it didn't include the classrooms that are used for special education. So when we looked at all that we basically said, oh, well, wait a second, let's rethink this and think about where we're spending our money, and I'll see if this works. Nope. I'll just let you push the buttons here, and I'll give this back. Oh, no, that's because she pushed that. So we went back and back up one. No. Oh, you're just use the side arrows. Oh, side arrows do it. Okay, so it does work. I just didn't know how to use the technology. Operator error. So we looked at the entire campus and realized that what we could do to accomplish this thing is just add 2 new classrooms, and we're showing them up in the upper left-hand corner, and that's the northwest corner of the campus, to provide 2 new classrooms to kind of make up for those ones that we needed. Plus, in order not to lose Tech Town, the discussion was that we could put in a drama classroom next to the music room, and that would take care of that. And after we had done that, we really just, the last piece of this puzzle is physical education, PE. When you have a rainy day like you've had, I don't know. You don't have enough indoor space for PE. And so the discussion kind of revolved around to, well, if we left several portables, and we ended up with the number of 3 portables down there on the lower campus, those could be used for rainy day PE and PE storage and that sort of stuff as the extra space in order to kind of provide that space when you had bad days like we've had this entire last month. And so that gives us a count of classrooms on the campus. And then the last piece of the discussion was that one of the critical things that the people have complained about at the school was the food service. The kitchen is too small, the serving lines end up too long, they have a lot of problems. So next to and I think there's it doesn't do that, but next to the NPR, you can see there's a little building kind of built out on the edge. And so that part of this idea was that we could just build a new kitchen on the outside of that, then tear out the old kitchen and let that space allow the multi-purpose room, which is too small, to expand. And then we provide a new kitchen, new serving line, and then also to the east of that, just above the music room, add a lunch shelter out there, so you could have indoor and outdoor lunch shelters. And then we can kind of solve all the major problems on the campus. The beauty of this, which Dr. Young pointed out when we started getting into this, was by doing that, we've cut, we had $6.9 million to do all those buildings down below. We've cut out a lot of that, and now we can use that money to modernize the existing classrooms so that instead of just affecting the couple hundred kids that were going down below, we could provide benefit to the entire campus, to every student who goes there. So, if this works, I see I'm catching on to the technology. So that discussion led us to, okay, if we can do that, we can modernize the classrooms. We could also then think about how we could try to improve that school, because it's older, it's concrete tilt-up buildings, and it's not an inviting place to be, and it doesn't make it feel like it's exciting to go there and learn. The idea was that as long as we're saving this money, we could turn around and look at what we could spend it on that would really make a benefit. And so the discussion was that outside of Tech Town, outside of our new buildings, and kind of outside the science room, we could create outdoor learning areas to bring learning outside and make the place a fun and exciting place for the kids. The sketch there is not one that I did specifically for this project. It's for another project, but it kind of gives you the idea. You can create gathering spaces and workspaces. There's an image there of kids sitting around a curved space. I like the top image. It's from another architect for a shopping mall or something like that. But the idea of having tables and umbrellas out there, we like to go to the coffee shop and sit out and pop open our laptop and work. the kids like that too, the students like that too. So if we could do things like that, we could really make this an exciting place to learn and expand the education from just being in the classrooms to being through the entire campus. The other thing we can do is think about outside the science classrooms doing a garden or green area or a green wall or something like that, so that activity could support what's going on in science classrooms. And these are just some more images of things we might do. And it's really inspirational. We haven't worked with the site committee and developed a real design yet, but it's kind of the thinking that we've put into this so far. The campus improvements could also include painting, where we have some of that concrete. We could put on it. The image up above is another shopping mall where they came in. It was an old 60s place, and they put on wood siding on the outside and spiffied it up so that it looked neat without a great deal of cost. And we could do some stuff like that to just make the place feel a lot better. When I talked about a lunch shelter, a lot of people think of a large lunch shelter as being dark underneath, but we could do something like the photo in the lower left-hand corner, which has a translucent skylight material over the top of it, and that would give that a nice, light, airy space. The kids would actually enjoy sitting out there rather than hanging out somewhere else. And just some more images of some of the things that we might be able to do, paint, awnings, that sort of stuff, and make the place a neat place at a lesser cost. The last thing I wanted to bring up in terms of appearance is several people have mentioned that when you drive up to the front of that with the bars of the fence, it looks almost like we've created a prison there. And so one of the things I'm suggesting is that there's a lot of other things we could do with fences that would still allow it to be secure but not look so terrible. The pictures on the top is at an elementary school I did down in San Jose, and we just used basically metal plates that they laser cut out the leaf patterns, and we carefully made sure that pattern, because on second floor balconies you can't have the opening more than 4 inches so kids can't crawl through it. We carefully made sure that the patterns were all there so we didn't have anything that didn't exceed that. So it's both safe and secure, and it's better than bars. Here, for the modular classrooms, there are several products out there on the market. The top right-hand one is, actually the whole right side is one called Gen 7 that is a modular classroom that's actually a very environmentally friendly building because they've built it to the CHIPS, the California High Performance Standards, and yet they can be opened up and have operable spaces in between and be really nice spaces. The one on the left, top and bottom, is one made by JL Construction. It's another version. There's a number of them out there, but they don't have to look like portables. They can look nice, have good classrooms, and they're less expensive than if we tried to stick-build a standard classroom. How do we get this done is the next question. And so we kind of looked at that and came up with this initial concept of a plan for getting this done. As a first phase, going up into the northwest corner and building the new modular classrooms. The reason why this is first is because modular classrooms can be done over the counter at DSA, so that we can get it done more quickly. When we do that, we're taking out some parking spaces, so the thinking was that across the way next to the baseball field, we would replace those with new parking spaces so that we're leaving the campus with the same amount of space they have. Then the next phase would be the modernization of the main part of the campus, and that would have to, just because we can't get it approved by DSA for summer 2017, which is right on top of us practically, we're thinking that could be done in summer 2018. It has to be the modernization of the entire campus because you have to have kids out of the school.
You got 1A on there too.
Oh, excuse me, 1A.
Our tennis people in the room.
Let me go back to that because our tennis people are in the audience. I'll go back to that in just a second. Let me finish up with the rest of these. Phase 3, we imagine would be the kitchen, lunch shelter, drama classroom, because that could all be constructed over there in an area as kind of a separate piece. And then finally, the phase 4 was the lower portables, getting rid of those portables, taking the best 3 and turning them around and pushing them kind of back up against the slope there so that they didn't block the views down there to the field that's off to the left or to the tennis courts, and just basically cleaning up and refurbishing that area down there. One of the things about these portables here is that there are several of them that really just need to simply go in the trash can. But there's also some of them that might be thought of as, when we get to that point of moving them to one of the elementary schools as swing space, where we're doing some of the modernization or new buildings there, because we're going to have to tear out some stuff in order to do that. And you'll have those, you own those portables, so we could move them temporarily there, and then after they've been used as swing space, then either sell them or simply get rid of them. Going back to tennis courts, phase 1A, one of the things we realized as we were talking about that is, this particular plan would allow us to refurbish those tennis courts, fix them up, resurface them, add some benches, lights, that sort of stuff. And that's a project that could be done fairly quickly and separately, because it now is kind of independent of all the rest of the work. So one of the things that in looking at this and in scheduling this, that's something that could be done during this next summer if you wanted to. And it would provide an immediate benefit, not just to the tennis people, but also to the kids who use the tennis courts as part of the physical education program and providing the additional services out there. So in discussing this phasing, this is kind of my initial take on what our schedule might be. If we take it to DSA, get over the counter, put this thing out to bid, modular classroom manufacturers are all fully booked for the summer. Even if we rushed, you talk to them and they look at you and they say, no, we can't do anything during the summer. So that's something that we could start late summer. They've finished all their foundations in June, July, and then their crews become available starting sometime in August. So we could start working on the foundations in August and then move the portables in during the fall, September, October. I mean, the modular classrooms in September, October. So fall 2017. As I said, the tennis courts could be done in the summer. Summer 2018 could be done, we could do the modernization of the school. The kitchen, lunch shelter, drama project, if you will, or segment of that stuff, we can do the drawings, get it into DSA, get it approved, bid it, and possibly start in the spring. So work on that would be going on while we're doing the modernization during the summer, and it's probably going to take about 8 or 9 months to finish it. So that would push us to about December 2018. We'd be finished, and then the following summer, 2019, then you could take while kids are not there at campus, you could pull the portables out, finish things up, and clean it up. Important thing, even though our bond oversight committee guy is not here, is money. How do we do this? So we looked at what we had originally budgeted for the modular classrooms on the lower campus, and looked at what we have we had budgeted for the modernization, and this plan comes pretty close. It's a little bit more money than we had in that, but it comes pretty close. I won't go through all the numbers there, but you can see we've kind of budgeted out each aspect of it, including at the bottom of that 25% for soft costs and 10% for contingencies, because as you've learned from the field project, stadium project, you need a little bit of contingency for construction and how that goes. So before I go on to my next topic, which is the fields, is there any questions about this?
The fields around this campus?
Yes.
So, Lee, can I bring up something that we also also talked about
Okay.
with the remod of the whole campus is one of the things that was a big concern at the table was the fact that there was some way to alleviate the darkness on that campus. So Lee gave us some great diagrams, both Lee and Roxanne were talking about the idea of skylights, ways that could brighten up and open the area so that those corridors which seem so dark and dismal now, because it's not just the gates in the front that were a concern for the kids, but also the darkness. So we really got excited about that idea that not only would we be remodernizing the site for everybody, but that darkness that we've often talked about could finally be addressed. And that in itself, I think, would give the school a whole new feeling for the kids of not feeling so closed in and so trapped. So that was something that I thought was big that we discussed that day.
Yeah.
The other thing too, in the same vein, we talked about some of the spaces, we talked about some of the spaces, adding window walls, such as when you first walk in, on the right-hand side, it's not talked down, but windows, so that it brings that space, so you get more inside-outside areas, but also light and a connection, and then also some of the areas around the C wing. So opening up some of those existing, so the buildings that are existing feel like they got more than just new paint and.
Right, including that B wing that we've talked about, that is so dark and dreary. So yes.
A lot of it too, I like the pictures of the facade, just of wood or ivy or something to make it look less institutional.
So doing something like that, and we did talk, and thank you for bringing that up. We did talk about between Tech Town and the courtyard out there, putting glass wall like you might see in that upper left-hand image. Doing the same thing between Talktown and that main corridor. Also, besides skylights and those outdoor covered walkways, there was a little bit of discussion about getting a skylight or doing something to lighten up the entry into the library, because that's not, when you walk in there, it just doesn't feel like it's a welcoming space. And so to do stuff like that is kind of the idea. We will obviously have to work with Damien and the school and work out the details of all this, but this is the conceptual look at what we would do to try to make this campus a much more exciting place.
Well, and I think one of the other things we discussed too was painting, right? Changing the color of it, because that dark gray, old hospital prison color is what's on those walls. I mean, it is. It's just, it makes it a very dark place. So the idea of brightening it up. I mean, look at the difference when we did the high school. That's an incredible transformation. So the idea of lightening those walls as well was a very appealing feature.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One note that you have on here is new front entry. And so is there a plan in place like to redo that, or we're looking for a plan to redo that?
Well, we're looking for a plan. I haven't come up with a design of what we're going to do, but we do. Part of that was, the entry, making it a welcome place, get rid of the prison gates, and try to find ways to make this look like a spiffy, wonderful place for the kids, and it was what it should be. It should be.
One of the other things we talked about was, we're eliminating classrooms. And Damien did a lot of look at his campus and the rooms and the use of the rooms and stuff. And he goes, we could easily just move those people up and absorb them in the classrooms that we have. And I was concerned, well, what if we have 100 new students show up, and he said we still could, take care of everything that we're doing now. So that kind of made a lot of sense, is why, let's spend the money up inside instead of just on those few classrooms on the bottom. So. Anything else?
Okay.
Is there any community, public questions back there?
Sure.
All right, it's been a while. Jojo Donetti, Benicia Community Tennis. Thank you for this. I can assure you it's not going to cost $50,000 to do the middle school courts. 4 years ago when we had vendors come in to take a look at the courts to see what it would cost to fix them. It was $30,000 per court. There are 4 courts. That's why the bond money had $120,000 for it. Didn't include fixing the fences, didn't include fixing the lights. So 50,000 is way short. So, thank you though.
Thank
I appreciate it being a summer 2017. The kids will be very excited when they come back in the fall. What's that?
I recall the association now.
We are, yeah. So as I explained to Roxanne a month or so ago when she brought up that the middle school was coming up for the design, we are still planning to donate benches for the middle school courts, and we already did for the high school courts. We made custom benches for the high school, but we plan on donating benches on the courts. We also are planning to donate a shed off, maybe behind or where the quad is right now, the 8th grade quad. So we're going to have a permanent shed there, a tough shed. And then we're also looking at some fan seating, some permanent fan seating, so you don't have to put out, like little picnic chairs. So yes, we still have our money in the bank. It's there. We're waiting patiently. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then I would like to kind of finish with, I know that I was not at the December meeting, but I know that there was some discussion about the fields and the city's lease of the field space. And after that, we went back and looked at the lease and kind of, and did basically a drawing of what what areas are covered by that lease agreement. And so I'm going to kind of go through those really quickly, and then Roxanne can describe what the language says about these 3 areas. There were 3 areas, and we plotted them out because it's in the lease. It's described as meets and bounds, which means you go north 72 degrees for 318 feet, and you do turn left and all that sort of stuff. And so we plotted out. The 3 areas are subparcel 1, which was mainly intended, I think, to describe the entire area that the city could use. It's interesting that in that description, it included part of the gym and some of the classrooms down there at that end. And I'm not sure that was intended, but that's the way it was shown. And it also excluded the tennis courts. And I don't know. Subparcel 2 is basically what we call the lower, the field down there, and that also overlapped some of this stuff. This parcel here, Roxanne, if I'm correct, is the one that the language says that the district can take back with notice.
Yeah, so there's a clause in the lease, and it says that if attendance is greater than 850 people at the middle school, which we've been over 1,000 for many years, then the district is entitled to withdraw that as if they're going to use it for use for the students. So that is part of the lease that we're entitled to take that out.
And then the last subparcel mentioned in the lease, oops, wrong way, is subparcel number 3, which is this area of parking up there at the front of the school. And I don't think there's any description of why that was included in the lease. I think it was probably parking for the use, but it's kind of an odd thing to sit out there, especially when you go back to number 1 that includes the parking lot. So I'm not sure that when that was done, everybody thought the whole thing through, but that's what your lease, the lease areas show. And that's information for you.
Are we leasing it to the city, or are they leasing it to us?
We are leasing it to the city. It's our property. So I'll just kind of build on what Lee was saying.
I'm sorry, just
Sure,
before you start
sure.
that, though. The proposal on the changes, are we reduced, regardless of who owns it, what, and the contract, are we reducing the size of the fields?
No.
Okay. So the 2 baseball fields will be usable as they are today?
Yes, we're not changing the baseball fields as they are today. We are, you know, if you see up in the upper right-hand corner, there's an area that has a shed down there and there's a little paved area next to that main baseball field. We're talking about using that turning that into parking. I'm not sure, since it's not used for sports, that that's going to be an issue, but it is something that the district is going to have to discuss with the city. When we remove the lower portables down there and clean that area up, we'll actually increase that space. And in fact, I'm going to walk over here and show you.
We would almost have size of a soccer field.
Yeah, this area here, like that, is just about a standard soccer field in size. So right now, your portables jut into that, so there would actually be a more usable space down there if you were going to use it for soccer or football practice. It's not, you know, obviously you don't have all the sides space you'd have at a standard football field, but it could be used for practice field for that, or even for softball. So I'll turn it back over to you.
I was just going to add to what the infographics that he gave, then just give you some information on our lease. I think we're in great standings with our schemes, but just so we have it as general knowledge as we move forward. So the Benicia Middle School, the governing documents over the middle school include a 1986 fields lease agreement, which is a 99-year lease. There's a 1976 tennis courts agreement. So they carved that out, but then we did a different agreement giving them joint use over the tennis courts. And then there's a joint use agreement which covers multiple BUSD sites. So that's the one that goes across the high school. So we have multiple agreements. It's our land, and we have agreements with the city. So the areas included in the lease, as Lee said, were described via a legal description of meets and bounds with no maps or graphics. So when we started looking at this, we're like, hey, we need somebody to draw this out. And so HY helped us and put together these graphics, which are really helpful. And as we walk through these, at some point we may want to, even if we keep the intent of the way it is, to go back and correct it so that the lines don't go through the middle of the gym and, you know, stuff like that. Per the 1986 agreement, the district is entitled to remove the area described in Exhibit 2 from the lease if the enrollment at the school exceeds 850 students, which it has. There's a process, give 120-day notice, go through the steps. In our prior conversations, we were like, what is that area in the bottom that falls in subparcel 2? So for our conversations since then, we've been calling that the lower fields, with the upper right hand, the one closest to the street is termed Field 1 for the softball courts, and the lower one is Field 2. So as per the city's so there was questions as to who the current users were of that lower field. I talked with the city, their current users, from February through July. The field is used by Benicia Little League for practice, Monday through Friday, 4 to dark. And it's also used on Saturdays from 8 to dark as a warm-up for the Benicia Little Leagues. And then it's used from August to December by Benicia Youth Football, Monday through Friday, 5 to dark. Of note, the lower fields in their existing configuration do not meet regulation size for Little League or youth football games. The games aren't played there, it's only practice. The terms of our lease for use say that the school district shall have priority in scheduling use of the premises during regular school days from the time instruction commences to 4:30 p.m. in the Field 1, which is the north field, and until 5 p.m. in Field 2, the south field. And then in addition to that, if we ask 30 days in advance, we can have 5 days per year for the fields. So, as Lee said, if we do, we would end up meeting with the city if everybody decides to proceed with this. In Field 1, that existing space right now, I guess they use it, Gary, you thought mostly?
On Field 1, just north of Field 1, where you're to the right and kind of top a little bit of where your square is there is a shed that has their tractor, their quad for scraping the fields and everything, and then there's a set of restrooms that are all part of that. And that's all that's used for. And I know we kind of talked about if we shift the restrooms over,
I mean, we're giving them an improvement to the space, so we would certainly, we will, if, as we go through this process, we will certainly set up meetings with the users, and we have to give the city notice and give them input, but it seems like they're getting benefit, so we're improving something and they're getting better use of it than what's there right now.
And I'll go back here real quickly. Yeah, where we're showing that parking lot, that's kind of conceptual, obviously, at this point. And so we'd have to get those buildings located on that, and we could adjust that location so that we don't impact, or we can work with the city to make their existing buildings work for them. This actually probably would be seen by them as a benefit, because now they can bring stuff down to the field, right, and park right there next to it.
I'm not sure during the adult sports they will want that anyways, because they do get some foul balls hit
No,
over the,
good point, good point.
yeah. So,
Do not park here. Okay.
and maybe something,
Put up the signs, foul ball territory.
yeah, it may be something we would need to discuss too with our, just having middle school PE there. I mean, I don't know, that'd be a question to ask our PE teachers, I guess, you know, how many foul balls go over the
backstop.
backstop.
Yeah, that's a very good point, very good point.
What do we get, so the lease was done at a time when they were maintaining grounds in exchange for letting the city use the facilities, do they still provide us a benefit?
Yeah, so they, I know, the lease is written very kind to them, the 99-year lease, but the grounds agreement, which covers across from the high school and the middle school, and it's one of the elementary schools is still in there as well. Other ones were pulled out, but so with the stadium, we just terminated the coverage that it had over the stadium area, because we'll be taking care of that. But one of the benefits that they provide us in exchange is they pay for the water bill for that, and then they have shared maintenance. And then with the Sprint Tower at the middle school, there's an agreement where it was split as to the proceeds of it, kind of like in exchange for them helping us. If we reduce the amount or decided to take it out, then we can take that back. So water's not cheap right now. I mean, as a, you know.
I don't feel water. My son plays youth football, and that field is dangerous.
Because it's so hard, is it compacted? Oh, yeah.
Oh, I just don't think it was being kept up. And I think perhaps that we should either ask them to step up and honor their commitment or terminate it.
I know that Alfredo has had some comments on that and the interactions, and I would look to him to provide more insight, but I know that there's been some conversations about it.
John, did you want to say something, or, okay? I know you've been in the maintenance for a long time, and so, okay. Continuing. So what I do like also is that through all this research, we found that we could be having tennis programs during the week without the city bumping us out of there. Because I know that's been an issue before when the city said, nope, we get these courts now when we want to have after-school stuff, so.
Goes till 5 from the lease agreement.
Till 5? Or unless we give them 30-day notice and we can have it after that. There we go. Any other questions on this?
Can I make one comment? It was really engaging. Charles and I were able to sit down with Roxanne and Lee and Damien and to go through that process to take a time out and rethink where we're headed at Benicia Middle School. It really, this plan, it's creating a campus-wide 21st century learning spot that we've talked about, Charles, versus a lower field getaway 21st century area. You know, it takes it away from the lower field getting the 21st century upgrade to the entire campus. And it was just really engaging to now have a campus throughout the whole campus that every single kid will see something in their classrooms and those surrounding areas. So it was very exciting to go through that and to have Damien, the middle school principal, right there with us and having that vision.
And truthfully, I had a greater appreciation
Jackson for a conversation on all those open learning spaces where the kids could come together. After I saw the video that you sent us, I don't know if anybody else had the opportunity to see the TED Talk, but it was an interesting perspective on using architecture to create relationships for kids and with kids and their adults, and doing it in all these open areas with their teachers. So I had a whole new appreciation for the new design that you're coming up with for Benicia Middle School after seeing that. So
Makes a difference.
that was on my treadmill this morning. I was working and
I'm
watching a video.
I'm glad you watched it. I could send it to the rest of you. It's only 10 minutes long.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great video.
So I have a question. What do we think our, next steps are?
Actually, I'm wondering, so we have one more slide, and I know it was shared with the board in their packet about how the budget for this fits in. We've been talking about trying to build this master project list for the remaining bond projects. And I don't know if the board wants to talk about and look at that and a comfort level with, okay, well, so if we spend more money here, then what does that do and what's left and remaining? And then if everybody has a comfort level with that, then if we go on in developing this plan and direction, would you like me to go there? You want me to, do you want to explore that more with Lee? Like, what would you like?
I think the need at the middle school is probably the biggest. I would have prioritized it over the athletic field, honestly. I mean, I just think that's just such a depressing location that anything you can do is worth the prioritization.
And it's still, as we've discussed, it's still, in talking about the middle school, from the beginning when we created those 5 priority lists, we're still operating from that decision that we made that the middle school needs that attention. So my thought on it is, we go back and put the pencil to paper and start creating some details in the plan, and then have, deeper conversations out at the middle school to, share our thoughts with the community there. And then schedule it and bring it back to maybe a board study session like we did with the whole facilities master plan, and talk about what, the details of what this would look like going forward.
Yeah, I agree. That would be the way to do it, is to go back, talk with the users there at the campus, really develop this, because I've given a lot of ideas about skylights and stuff, and it would be incumbent upon us to understand the educational needs and try to make sure that what we're doing is not just making it look pretty, but also trying to make everything we do support that educational program and support making this a great place for kids to learn. And that's going to take some development, but I think we should dive right into that and move forward and try to keep this thing rolling.
It'd be great to get the input of the kids. I mean, things like, my son's there now, and so the things like the lunch, which I hear about all the time. But, the geese and the lack of shelter, and the fact that, if it's unsheltered benches are disgusting, and, just get their input and what makes it an attractive, inviting area.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, Charles, but maybe when we do the study session on the plans for the middle school, we can, the document that's on here is very good about what we see as the next phases of being important, and those are all things that are in our master plan that we put there, but that might be a good conversation to be had, so that we could make sure that we're all understanding what's going to be taking place next, and then we can share that with the community. So can we include that as well as a dialogue on that?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. All right. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to move to the first reading of the following board policies: BP 0410, non-description in district programs and discrimination, in district programs and activities; AR 5148, childcare and development; AR 5148.3, preschool early childhood education; AR 6173, education for homeless children; E6173, education for homeless children; and E9323.2, actions by the board. This is first reading. Dr. Young, you want to say anything?
Yeah, so the Board Policy Review Committee met last week, I believe, and with two new members, Mr. Morgan and Ms. Monet. And we talked about these board policies, and really they represent some updates to those policies, some changes to match up with Ed Code to make sure that they're really up to date. So I didn't, Ms. Jensen, I don't think we had anything else to add to those other than they really procedural updates.
Any questions? Public comment? Okay, moving on. Non-consent action items. Consideration and ratification of the total compensation package between Confidential Management Association and the Benicia Unified School District. Dr. Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the association submitted a proposal to the superintendent for consideration. And after consideration, the superintendent is bringing forth this tentative agreement for approval tonight. In accordance with Assembly Bill 1200, the district will publicly disclose the cost of the tentative agreement with the association. And that following any applicable public comment, staff recommends that the board approve the proposal for the 2016-2017 school year as presented.
Is there any board comments, questions?
I didn't see it in the agreement, but as I understand it, there is no Me Too clause associated with this proposal.
That is correct. It's not part of the proposal submitted by, that's not part of the recommendation from the superintendent.
Right. That's, we would not be authorizing that.
Any public comment or questions? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the proposal as given.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it passes. Thank you. And with that, I will adjourn our meeting. Thank you.